Oftentimes, protagonists in media have some sort of unique trait that differs them from the rest of their kind. Olimar from the Pikmin series is an interesting example who is technically an exception, but before you ask what his unique trait is, it's kind of a trick question. Today we will be talking about Olimar and what makes him such an interesting character. Before we begin, be sure to subscribe and hit the like button for more character videos, and I hope you enjoy. Let's talk about other Nintendo protagonists for a moment. Of course we have Mario. His high jumps are iconic, and in his universe he's basically a superhero and a celebrity. Then there's Link, of course, Hyrule's chosen warrior, and we have Samus, the intergalactic bounty hunter. And then we have Olimar. He's just a guy. So, what's Olimar's unique trait? The lack of one, that's what. Olimar doesn't have a unique trait, and ironically, that's what makes him unique. He's literally just a working-class family man. Olimar lives on the planet Hocotate, and works for the deep space shipping company Hocotate Freight. He's just a working-class guy with a wife and 2 kids, doing his best to provide for them, even if it sometimes means being gone for an extended period of time. In the first Pikmin game, his ship gets struck by an asteroid during his regular everyday work responsibilities, and this causes him to crash land on an unknown planet with his ship parts scattered and his spacesuit only giving him 30 days left to live. He discovers indigenous creatures, which he dubs Pikmin, and with their help, he's able to make it back home to his family, usually. As much as I'd like to go on about the different aspects of the first Pikmin game, including all the details of the different endings, this video is about Olimar and not the titular Pikmin, or the game Pikmin. On top of his space explorations, Olimar is also a good note-taker, especially about other creatures. Like, a biologist, I guess. The notes he writes become useful in Pikmin 3 and 4, as Olimar leaves a lot of these notes behind for the sake of others viewing, especially when they also get stranded on the same planet. So Olimar, with that in mind, also seems pretty selfless. He's taking his hobbies and studying and putting them to good use to not just help himself, but others. One thing I've also noticed about Olimar compared to other general protagonistic characters is that you get a pretty good look at his emotions, especially when you look at the notes he writes for various ship parts and at the journal entries that he writes at the end of the day in Pikmin 1. It's not uncommon for him to mention his family, whether it's his wife or either of his 2 kids. Clearly, he cares a lot about his family, and certainly they care a lot about him. I'm sure they're worried sick about him when he's, stranded on an unknown planet with no guarantee of survival. Ironically, even 2 of the ship parts that you get are also from his kids. They're gifts from them, and ironically enough, they are identical parts, but that's irrelevant. Something else with his emotions is his sense of hope. If you progress through the game quickly, he seems pretty hopeful and grateful, and that he knows he can get out of the planet quickly and survive. However, on the other hand, if you take too long, he becomes pretty unsure of the situation, since at that point there's a good chance he won't make it. In fact, if you fail to get all ship parts within 30 days, you actually get the bad ending where Olimar tries to escape with what parts he has, but fails and dies. And, of course I feel terrible for him. He didn't do anything bad in his life to really deserve that. He just got really unlucky and crash-landed on a planet against his will. As for how the other in-universe characters feel about Olimar, it's quite interesting too. In Pikmin 2, you'll receive emails from various characters, including Olimar's family. His family seems to be doing well, especially with the money Olimar manages to get due to a promotion he receives from the company about halfway through the game, but they're also eager to see him come home. If only he didn't leave his coworker behind. Disgraceful. Jokes aside, that's not entirely on him. Louie's a different breed, but I might make a different video to talk about him in the future. In the beginning of Pikmin 2, the president and the company's weirdly sentient ship seem pretty unfairly impatient with Olimar. The game takes place after the first one, so Olimar already has all of his notes about the Pikmin and various creatures and other aspects of the planet. And Olimar, of course, he's not perfect, as nobody is, so there are some cases where he didn't have time to give proper explanations to Louie, but this is also mostly used as a tutorial to the player, but that's that's not important. Anyway, the President and the ship seem very rushy with Olimar, more so the ship, since he has more direct communication with Olimar. After Olimar repays the company debt, though, the President is far happier with Olimar than before, gives him a big promotion and everything. But I can't say the same for the ship. He always still seems very wary about Olimar, and on top of seeking the remaining treasure, he also has to keep the President safe, and so the ship kinda just doesn't have much faith in him. Sometimes that ship really just needs to shut up. In Pikmin 3, Olimar is not playable, but he is still important. For a while in the game, Olimar is merely mentioned, but the playable characters, Alf, Bitch, and Clumsy, don't know who he is. They don't meet face-to-face until the end of the game, after Louie becomes another goddamn issue, but Olimar probably could have died otherwise. Olimar, of course, appears again in Pikmin 4, but he's not playable, technically. In the first half of the game, he is important, you do see him a lot, but he's technically not himself. But in the second half of the game, he becomes a bit less important, but he does still have a notable role, to say the least. But in addition to this, he also has his own side campaign that plays a lot like the first game, but it helps him remember what had happened to get him in his current situation, but other than that, he's mostly just there. Honestly, there's a lot more I can say. I can go in much further detail about Olimar and his aspects in the games, but I'm trying to mostly keep it spoiler-free. Even though Pikmin 4 has been out for like a year and a half, I'm just gonna be nice like that. But more importantly, we would be here for kind of a while. Last thing I want to say about him in the games, though, is that honestly his general writing peaks in the first two games, which makes a lot of sense anyway, considering he is playable. Well, at least in terms of all four games' main stories. But on to other details about him. In Japanese, Olimar's name is Olimar, which is an anagram for Mario. It makes a lot of sense considering both Pikmin and Mario were created by Shigeru Miyamoto. Some other aspects about Olimar are that he's just under 2 centimeters tall, I'm dead serious. He wears a yellowish and red spacesuit, has a really big nose, and has a few strands of brown hair on the top of his head. His design hasn't really changed at all over the years, though in the first game, a lot of his renders have a lot less detail on them, but I guess that's sorta to be expected. He does look a little different in the 3DS spin-off Hey Pikmin, but by that I really just mean he has a jetpack and for some reason some of his renders have teeth. There's nothing wrong with that, it's just kind of unusual. So I've pretty much gone over the essential details of Olimar and why he's an interesting character. Even with Pikmin's recent increase in popularity, I unfortunately don't really see many people talk about Olimar that much. When people talk about Pikmin, it's either about characters like Louie, or more often, the titular Pikmin. But in this video, these were my thoughts on him and why he's unique. Hopefully I've opened some people's eyes to the interesting aspects of Olimar, and if not, then oh well, I guess. But those are my thoughts, and if you'd like to see more character videos like this one, be sure to like and subscribe. And for now, that will wrap up today's video. Thanks a ton for watching, and I hope to see you next time.